Hi, and welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. The common narrative surrounding aging often revolves around retirement, slowing down, taking it easy. However, in recent years, there's been a shift in this paradigm, and many individuals are proving that age is just a number when it comes to pursuing passions, especially in the realms of creativity. As individuals enter their golden years, they often have a wealth of experience, knowledge, and wisdom to draw upon, and these assets can be a tremendous boon in creative endeavors, whether it's writing or painting, music, or any other form of artistic expression. It's this accumulated wealth of life experiences that often informs and enriches the creative process, resulting in work that resonates with others. Moreover, the desire for community and connection remains a fundamental human need regardless of age. In fact, many retirees find that they have more time to invest in nurturing meaningful relationships and contributing to their communities. This shift towards community involvement can lead to powerful collaborations and the discovery of new creative outlets. My guest today has a wealth of experience and wisdom to share on this subject. He's made it a mission to create a welcoming hub for writers, fostering an environment where creativity can flourish. And when it comes with a fresh perspective to navigating these technical landscapes, proving age is not a barrier, it does nothing but to increase your opportunities to chase after those creative goals. R.C. Hand is an author, a storyteller, an avid traveler, and an inspiration for anyone who may be thinking it's too late to start chasing those creative dreams. So I'd like to welcome R.C. to the show.
Hello.
Hello, and thank you for being here today and just having this conversation. I'm so excited because just having our little pre-show chat, I know that this is going to take us a lot of places that are going to be super beneficial for people of all ages, the young and the older alike. So before we jump into all of those details, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what listeners need to know.
Well, I'm a 71-year-old retired self-employed contractor who always wrote. I paint and badly. And my wife and I have traveled the world, and our passion is travel. I retired about 11 years ago. And I've taken the time now since I retired to focus on a writing career and to stay fit through playing tennis and handball.
So 71 is not old. It is not. And being 40 has made me realize that I am so much closer to the second half of life than I am the first half. And having watched my in-laws enter this age of retirement life, it has been, I think, crucial for them to find ways to remain active and engaged, just to maintain a good quality of life. And I love that you are physically and mentally active at 71. So how does being active in these ways, like traveling and art and that kind of thing, how does that benefit your work that you have going on currently?
Well, I have a circle of friends that are much younger than I because I played tennis every day and handball also. I started playing handball about a year ago. And so I'm around much younger people. I'm middle-aged. I'm 71. I plan to live to be 142, perhaps. Who knows what the future holds. So I look at we all see ourselves as younger than we really are, I suppose. But being around a lot of different people younger than myself with lots of different political and social ideas is always fun, and gives me fodder to think about, and gives me a chance to hear what other people think about what's going on around the world.
It probably also offers up a little bit of inspiration for your writing material at times.
Absolutely. I have some very interesting characters with some very interesting ideas that are not necessarily my own, but I like to write stories about people and what their decision making leads to. I have a degree in criminology, so that sparks part of my thought process. And I grew up in a very unconventional childhood. I grew up in a rough bar and restaurant, and all my adult friends were criminals and drug addicts.
So when you say you pull from life experience, that looks a lot different than what probably most people would expect.
Yes. And so I have a lot of life experience that showed me how not to behave. And my characters in my stories come from those people I knew as a child who told me stories. And I saw their entering in jail and coming home from jail and going to prison and coming back from prison. And I was a shoe shine boy in my parents' restaurants before I was a waiter. And I would shine shoes and listen to all these tales. So I have lots of characters floating around in my head.
Do you have a favorite character that has stood the test of time in your mind?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. We had a fellow who was a cat burglar, and whenever my mother locked the keys in her car, she'd call him up, and he'd come and pick his way into our car or in our house. He had stolen many, many cars, and he had gone to jail more times than one can count. But he was very dependable when it came to getting us into our vehicle or back into our house if we were locked out.
Oh my word, what a great resource to have.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, so this key factor, like this really stuck out to me in our pre-show communication. You mentioned you don't write for money, and I think, like I said, it's probably true for a lot of us who have chosen to make writing a career goal, but likely for very different reasons. Because I would like to write for money, it's just not there yet. And so, if money is not the motivator, what drives your passion for writing at this stage in life, and what are you working towards?
Well, my life experience has shown me that being honest and going to work every day is the key to being successful. And I'm much more successful than I ever dreamed. My parents had very little, and we worked a lot. And I have an older brother and a younger sister, and we've become fairly affluent. And it came from hard work and perseverance. And I write stories about that, as well as stories about the interesting characters I've met in my past.
That's really amazing. Just to say, this is where I've come from, this is where I'm going, and I think we should all have those goals in life to say, you know what, my past is not going to define me. I'm moving forward, and I'm going to be the person that I decide I'm going to be. And so that's a very inspirational story. Have you ever written your own story, like your story, down on the page?
I have started it. It's called Living La Vida Loca, and it's it's underway. But I find that perhaps it would be unbelievable. And I get an idea in my head, and I tend to write a couple of novels at the same time. I read novels the same way. Right now, I'm doing research for a book on World War II, which is a precursor to my spy novel, which is Grandpa Ernie's Secrets. And it's about his father, who was in the OSS, the precursor to the CIA. So I'm reading a lot of books on World War II and the CIA. But I I was an overactive child, and I'm an overactive adult still. So that's my work program is reading and writing, and then getting physical activity to keep the blood flowing.
So over the years, you've tackled these challenges of being an overactive child, and I'm going to interpret that in my psychological terminology that it was probably ADHD in some form or fashion, where just little can't keep your rear end in the seat, and constantly moving from one thing to the next, which that's actually pretty typical for creative people. Our brains just get so spun up, or maybe that's why we're creative. I'm not sure what the correlation is. I don't know that science could actually tell you what the correlation is. But how have you tackled that challenge, aside from staying active? Like, how do you sit down and write when you're dealing with the overactive brain and imagination?
Perhaps the physical activity that I do in the morning every day lets me express that energy. And then after my lunch and maybe a nap, I'm calmed down. I can sit down and write. I have many wonderful dreams. I've never had to use alcohol or drugs at all. I don't drink. I don't even drink coffee. But I have wonderful dreams, so those help a lot. And I've met some really interesting people in my life. I worked in people's homes for 50 years. I met a lot of very interesting individuals with interesting backstories. And I worked in Curtis LeMay's house, who was a general during World War II. I worked in the home of writers for the Smothers Brothers. And I always ask people how you made your living. What was the most interesting thing that happened to you? I'm a people-oriented person. I like stories. And so I always ask my clients what their background was. I had one client that his family made tombstones and became quite wealthy. So if you're in a milieu where you have the opportunity to talk to people, you have to take that and learn from those experiences. They were much older than me at the time. They're gone now, surely. But when you're a young fellow, you can find older people that have past experiences that will benefit you if you ask the questions.
I think curiosity like that, I think that can help feed creativity in so many ways because, and I think a lot of times for me, I know when I write, it's because I'm curious about how something might work. And there's always going to be research involved. I'm always going to go back and dig for answers before I even put it on the page, which then just increases my knowledge. And so I think curiosity, they say it killed the cat, but I think it really drives creativity more than anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the older I get, usually this is how it works, the wiser I have become. And for instance, um, who I surround myself with and those who I allow to influence my work, it's become a much smaller circle than it used to be. And but that being said, I think community is very important and surrounding yourself with people who can speak to your work, but also inspire you. That's very important for creatives to just create and maintain for a number of reasons. What role has community played in your creative journey?
I think a major role because of all these people I've met in my work world. I didn't work in an office surrounded by the same people every day, so I was not in an office environment. And I had the opportunity to meet very interesting people who worked for me and who lived in these homes that I worked in. And of course, in my travels, I've come across some interesting circumstances and people. And as yourself, as you just mentioned, I love in learning new things. And when I go into research for a book, I always find more things that lead me down the rabbit hole. I just came back from London from a wedding, and I do a diary of all my trips on my website. And so I go in and do research when I come home to do the history of the country that I went to. I did a deep dive into the underground system in London this time, learned a great deal, and found out some other interesting things along the way by happenstance, which made it much more interesting.
I think that is the key to being a good in my field, a good author, a good writer is being observant and taking in the life experiences and not letting those experiences go to waste. Take in everything that you're experiencing, whether it's people or sounds or places, and like constantly making notes about it. That's me. I have my notes app on my phone all the time, it just at the ready as I'm driving down the road and a thought will hit me because I'll see a tree that's a certain color or something, just or a song comes on the radio and immediately I'm going note to self and I'm recording what I have to say. And so I think that does make somebody a better writer, just taking in everything around them.
Absolutely. I'm reading a book right now. It's a detective novel, a Jack Reacher novel. And I'm also reading a book on, a book edited by Sir Charles Chichester. It's a book of true sailing adventures. So these sailors and captains have written stories about their true adventures on the sea. And I love writing about that. And so this book has been very interesting. The first solo woman sailor wrote a story on there about losing her husband on one voyage. She was the first woman to circumnavigate the globe solo. And of course, Sir Charles Chichester was the first man to do that. And it's just interesting to read these stories from centuries ago. I think I was born about 100 years too late. I find the clipper ship adventures and medieval England and that time frame very interesting to me.
I don't fit in this world that I am stuck into, and so I struggle sometimes to connect my creativity with what's going on in the world around me because maybe it's just that I don't like reality and I like to escape it, and so I tend to go back in time. And for instance, the book that I'm currently that's with my editor right now, it's set in like the 90s because I loved the 90s. Like the 90s was like the best decade for me growing up and just the memories that went with the nostalgia that went with it. And so sometimes I think that just being able to travel through time sometimes is just, it really speaks strongly to me when I'm writing.
I agree. I think that people with an inventive or interested mindset aren't satisfied with where they are in that time, and we go back or into the future to try and find more interesting surroundings. And perhaps myself being a more hyperactive, I don't tend to focus as long as I should in a natural day-to-day setting. And when I write, that gives me an opportunity to really dive deep and focus into a storyline and meet these characters. And of course, that practice of creating characters, it's different for all of us. And I remember writing a sequence in my first novel, and I was crying in my office because I'd killed off a character, and my wife came in and asked me what was happening, and I said, well, the baby has just died, and for me at that time it was a real event, and I'm sitting at my desk crying, but I'm kind of a crybaby anyway.
I had the same exact experience. I was writing my first book, and one of the characters, I did away with them, and I'm sitting there and I'm bawling. I mean, like I've never cried that hard at a funeral, kind of thing, and I'm just sitting there weeping, and because I know, the everything surrounding the death and that kind of thing. And my husband walks by and he stops. He comes back and he looks, and I was like, "It's fine. Brian just died." And he just kind of looks at me. He's like, "Who's Brian?"
Yeah,
It's like, we don't know a Brian.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but we do get attached to our characters. They're part of us. I mean, when you put something on paper, it's part of your soul bleeding out of you. And so you are connected to those characters. So I give you a pass. That is perfectly acceptable.
It's an interesting process. It's hard to explain, and I think you have to become enmeshed with these people to make the adventure worthwhile.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. So just a few minutes ago, you mentioned that you have a website. And so where you put your travel journey, the journal, and that kind of thing. So let's talk about your website and what it is and what your goal is for it.
Well, initially it was a place to store information on my travels. I've been to 83 countries and all 7 continents, including North Korea. We've done this over the past 40 years, my wife and I. And as time went on, I thought it was a good place to put up the first chapters of my novels. And I believe in hard work and perseverance to becoming successful. That's the path to success. So my first novel is about that. And my second novel was a follow-up novel, which is a grand ocean adventure in 18th century England. And I have a third book rattling around in my head, which will be the third of the trilogy. So that was the initial beginning of my website. And then I put my travel stories on there. I have personal stories from my childhood living in a wild and woolly restaurant where people were misbehaved and shots being fired now and then. So it's a compilation of my personal stories, my books, and I've done a few interviews with podcasts and with other writers I have up on my book. I'm trying to interview more writers and put up there. So it's kind of a little bit of a grouping of those items. I think it's interesting, and I do historical dives on the places that I go to. So if you're interested in a certain country, you can look it up on my website and read about it and find out about the history. I just did a deep dive on the creation of the underground system in London. So there's some interesting things there. And my latest posting is about the family of the crown family of Italy before Italy became a country, the House of Savoy. I was interested in why the Savoy restaurant and hotel was named that. And I did a deep dive into that and found out those facts, which I won't tell you because they're very interesting and worth looking into yourself. But it caught my interest, and now I know what happened there.
That sounds fascinating. And I think that is so homeschooling mom. So we were always and have always been looking for resources for, hey, I have to do a project on and that kind of thing. So, you could totally open up your whole travel logs for, resources to homeschooling families and turning it into
Absolutely.
a whole nother, monetary venture if you wanted to. Just throwing that out there.
Absolutely. My first book was a book that can be read by teenagers and adults, and I think it's a story of hard work and luck leading to success. I think all of us could benefit from reading a story about a person who does that. And nowadays people complain about not being as successful perhaps as they'd like to be. I've become more successful than I ever dreamt of simply by going to work every day.
Yes, and that is unfortunately, that is a skill that has it's become a bygone thing. Like people are finding reasons to call out of work. They're finding reasons to, oh, my dog is sick. I can't come to work today. It's like that used to not fly. It used to be that, oh, well, then don't just show up the next day either. Like just don't come back. But the standards have been lowered. And so I agree. I think hard work is something that we take for granted, unfortunately.
I think that I have relatives that are from different countries that have married into the family. I have a French relative who's a fairly intelligent person. He has 2 degrees. And he said that if he would have stayed in France, he would have been the best waiter in France because he wouldn't have had the opportunity that he found in America. And I think sadly, Americans aren't aware of how fortunate they are. And if you go to live somewhere in a different country, perhaps you would understand how difficult it is to get ahead compared to what it is like in the United States.
Oh, absolutely. We lived in the Dominican Republic for one summer, and I mean, coming over from America and just seeing, and we lived in one of the nicer neighborhoods, and just to look out your window and think, wow. And the discrepancy between, like, there's not really a middle class. You're either, upper class or you're lower class. And in the area we were in Santo Domingo, and it's kind of like, it was very eye opening to have that experience. And not everybody can have those experiences. I get that. But I also think that history tells us that we live in a nation that we have way more than we deserve.
Well, and I'm not a religious person, but go back into the Bible in the recorded history. There's always been many more poor and less fortunate souls than kings and queens. So you always have a much larger middle or lower class than you have wealthy class. And conversely, who creates libraries and hospitals and things like that in your country are the wealthy entrepreneurs. Our libraries were created by an iron magnate who Carnegie Libraries, who provided free libraries across the country. The government didn't do that for us. It was a wealthy man who gave part of his fortune to the citizens of our country, who builds art museums and so forth. It's not poor people. Poor people barely can take care of themselves. It's the wealthy entrepreneurs that make things happen in the world. And if you're lucky, you can learn from them and benefit from their largesse by public education and so forth, and private education, and become one of those yourself. Like I said before, I have become so much more successful than I ever dreamt of. And I'm not talking about monetary. I'm talking about the ability to travel the world, to see how other cultures function. You don't have to be wealthy to do that. You can go anywhere you want to for $2,000 or $3,000 and have a wonderful life altering experience. You can save up in 10 years. Anyone can save $2,000 or $3,000 if they have the will, and go someplace in the world and have a life altering experience. That happened to us in Nepal. We had a life altering traveling trip to Nepal. We trekked through the Annapurna Mountains and went to different villages and saw how the children are treated in the communities, how they're responsibles. They have responsibilities in the family structure. They love going to school. They don't graffiti their school buildings. They don't cry about having a sick dog and can't go to school. They're anxious to go and be educated. And somewhere between there and here, that has gone by the wayside, so to speak.
Absolutely. That is, and we don't value what we have. And then we see the next big thing and we think we need to have that. And one of the things that we said that we were talking about pre-show was you went into life with a plan. You went into this life that you had a goal and said, this is what I want to do in the future. And in order to achieve those goals, I have to work towards that. Can you talk a little bit about, how did you make a plan? Because I think that's a skill. That is a skill that a lot of people don't have, but it's a skill that can be learned if they will just take the time to listen.
I lived in a very chaotic family. My father was an alcoholic, and he was a genius, but he wasn't always available. So I knew that my life depended on me. I had no one else to really take care of things for me. I paid into unemployment when I worked for my father in this business that I took over when he retired. I never have been on unemployment. I've never received a check from unemployment. I paid many, many dollars into it. We took a risk. My father was a risk taker. We bought land and built small apartment buildings for a couple of years after he retired, and then I opened the business again. But my wife and I, we talked about how we wanted to live. We wanted to be able to go on vacation now and then. We wanted to have our own home. We wanted to be able to actually give money to other organizations and people to help other people. I pay for 8 or 9 children around the world to go to school. And you have to become successful to be able to do that. If you want to change the world, you have to become successful to have some kind of power in it. I'm not politically motivated, so financially, I send children to school in other third world countries, and those will be the people who will change the world for the better.
Mm. I love that. Like, know where you want to go and make a plan to get there, and know your why. I think that's true in a lot of things, whether it's your writing, whether it's your career goals. Why are you doing this? And if it's just to get by, that's not a good enough why. Dig deeper.
Everybody, you can get by. If you want to get by, so be it. I didn't want to get by. I wanted to,
Right.
my primary goal was to own my own home.
That's an excellent goal. That is, and it's an achievable goal.
Absolutely. Even now.
Yeah. Yes, even now in this
And
economy, yes.
well, and people who are younger than myself won't recall how high mortgage interest rates were 30, 40 years ago. So you have to go back in time and see exactly that the interest rates right now are quite low historically. And of course, prices are higher for properties, but that's all a factor of inflation. And so you're probably making more money now than I was making back 30 years ago at the same time. So it's all a matter of where that little decimal point is. It really is irrelevant. I bought my first home by recycling bottles, cans, and newspapers. And in 3 years, I made $3,000, and my wife and I bought a condo with that money.
It can be done. Like, and
Absolutely.
that is so true. And not just in financial endeavors, but like if you want to sit down and write a book, sit down and write a book, but it's not going to write itself. You actually have to sit down and write a book. You want to travel, you're going to have to save your pennies and in order to travel, but you're going to have to sacrifice some things to do it. That may be time, that may be energy, whatever the case may be. Sacrifice is what's going to get you to the end goal.
Absolutely. I keep my cars on the average of 17 years. So I buy the nicest car that I can afford, and I take really good care of it. And I had 2 trucks in my entire working career. So I kept them running. I didn't buy new vehicles. I took that money that I could have used for vehicles and used that to invest in my retirement or to use to travel with. So if you want to have creature comforts now and a new car every 2 years, so be it. But you'll be paying car payments rather than traveling the world.
That's right. That's right. And
Everything's
so
a trade-off.
it is. And it has to be, what am I willing to give up? How badly do I want it? If I want it bad enough, then I'm going to make these sacrifices. But I think there's a lot of pressure that kind of surrounds us. And I've totally taken us off topic, but I love this train of thought because it's so applicable to so many areas of life that, there's this pressure to, I want, and therefore I have to have, and I'm going to get. And instead of saying, I can wait, I can be patient, I can hold off, because in the end, the reward will be so much greater.
Well, if you want to be a successful author, you had better build some patience in your lifestyle. None of this comes easy, so be prepared. That's all I can say.
Yes, and that is so true. Whether you are traditionally published or self-published or somewhere in between, I started down the path of attempting to become traditionally published, and the amount of rejection that comes with it. You're talking 90 to 100 rejection letters, and finally it just got to be too much. And I said, matters are being taken into my own hands, but that means that I am responsible for all of the work that goes into it. And if I'm going to be successful, there's not a day goes by where I can sit back and say, I think I'm going to sit on the couch and read today. Like there has to be work done every single day. You show up and you put in the work, and then you see the results. Otherwise, that computer is just going to sit there gathering dust.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thinking about and go, let's go back to your website real quick. So you had mentioned that you've put some podcast interviews and that kind of thing up there. Are you building an online community for artists or writers or creatives or something to that effect?
I would like to. Initially, that was my goal on my website, and it hasn't been as easy as one would like because writers are busy writing. They don't always have time to be bothered by an unknown person who wants to chat with them. I'm a little bit of a chatterbox. So I had a fellow who agreed to be interviewed by me, and he's asked me to be interviewed by a friend of his in British Columbia, which we'll do that when I come back from vacation. I've talked to people about getting book reviews. I've talked to people about lots of aspects of this business, and it turns out that just keeping your head down and working turns out to be probably the best approach. I do have an editor who I've used. I have my friends are willing to read my nonsense. Of course, reviews from your friends are not always as reliable as from strangers, perhaps, and that's an issue. But I'm not afraid to be I've been married a couple of times, so I'm not afraid of being rejected. The ultimate rejection has occurred to me already. So having someone not like a story is not that important to me. But I will take the input, absolutely.
I will say that when it comes to building a platform, especially when you're doing it again on your own time, your own resources, it is very time consuming. But I will say that there are plenty of, especially self-published indie authors who are always looking for a platform to connect with other writers and readers and that kind of thing. You just have to know where to look. The problem is sometimes finding them is a challenge. But I have a few in my back pocket that I'll gladly share.
Great. I belong to a couple of writing groups and have done some readings. And my live storytelling is part of one of the reading groups that I do in Long Beach, California. And so that's been a little bit helpful. But yeah, it's hard to track down these guys, gals working in the dark rooms of their homes and offices. They're not out on the streets easily tracked down.
No, you have to definitely get really up close and personal with some technology. But so I did the entire month of August. I had at least one interview with somebody every day in the month of August, and I have an interview, if not two, every day in October. And
That's
so,
cool.
I've got everything scheduled all the way up through mid-July, as it comes out week by week. And so it can be done. But like I said, the entire month of October, it's like nobody can talk to me except people that I'm meeting on the internet.
Well, I'm putting my hand up here and saying, oh, did that happen by accident?
I
I
don't
don't think so.
know.
I
I
don't
don't
think
think
so.
so either. I don't think so either. And is it easy work? I would like to think that it's easy work, but it is work, and it's fun and it's enjoyable on this end of things. But then what you don't see is that once our conversation has ended, then I have to upload and I have to edit and I have to make teasers and I have to send emails, follow-ups and all this jazz. And so that's in addition to, writing. But the thing is, it's work that I love. It's something that I enjoy doing. It's a passion. The podcasting part is becoming more of a passion because I have so enjoyed connecting with people, which is so funny because if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have been like, "Ew, people." Like I'm an introvert, so after every interview, I have to go sit in
I
quiet for
can
about an
tell.
hour. I'm just
I
like,
can tell you're an introvert.
"Ooh."
This was the gift for me of being self-employed and working for my father. And I might have turned out to be the person that I am now, but being involved in a family that's self-employed, that's self-motivated, I did all my own advertising. I did all my own searching for clients. I was in several magazines, specialty magazines. I ran ads in newspapers all the time. And so as a writer, an unsuccessful, hardworking, underpaid writer, I have the tools necessary, and so I have my day divided up into pieces of work, whether it's promotion. I wrote all my novels. Well, I wrote 6 or 7 novels before I did any promotion. The last couple of years is when I've really started. I wanted to have content before promotion. So now I have the content. I have 3 new novels that are done and will be up on my website shortly. One of them was a short story that's available on my website now on Amazon, but I've turned it into a novel. I'm doing the same thing with another book. I have another completely new novel that's finished and edited. So those will be coming up shortly. But being a self-employed person gives me so many advantages over everyone else because I understand innately that nothing is going to be accomplished unless I do it myself. And perhaps this is part of the problem with our economy at the time, right now, is that we depend on other people for our success. And I chose tennis in college and high school because it was a self-centered sport. I didn't play on a team because I wanted to succeed or fail on my own merits. And likewise in business, I wanted to succeed and fail on my own merits. And I was wildly successful because I was hyperactive and wildly energetic and wouldn't take no for an answer. And those qualities proved to be very helpful up until this point where I've become more serious about my writing. I always wrote. In high school, I had things published in the high school. I had things always on. I wrote lots of poetry, which has gone nowhere. But I have in in my desk, and so I always had this part of my character bubbling in the background. But of course, money is paramount when you're raising a family and so forth. So now that that's gone, and my immediate needs are taken care of now, I have invested in real estate also, which is a great thing for young people to do. Once you own your first home, the world is open to you to be able to buy another property and work your way up. I have clients who started with one little nasty duplex, and over 40 years of me working with them, I saw them build an empire of 150 units just through hard work. And they didn't have an immense amount of money. The husband was an engineer, and the wife would go out and look for properties, and they had a plan. And that plan was to make sure that they had a retirement that would be eating the good dog food and having shelter and working for yourself and creating a portfolio of real estate is a wonderful thing that all of us can do, regardless of what anyone tells you. It can be done.
It can be done.
Anything
And
can
it
be
is,
done.
yes, anything. If you set your mind to it and you make a plan and you stick to the plan. Now, does every plan go 100% according to the way you've laid it out? No, but there's a skill in learning how to kind of bend and roll when that plan shifts and say, okay, that's where your creativity comes in. Let's problem solve this. Let's think outside of the box and how can we fix this and move around. But as long as you're determined, you can succeed. You can be successful. Yes.
You have to. What's the option? Failure?
Right. But, some people are okay with that because they've gotten their mind where, failure is just another part of life and I have to accept it. No, you don't. You might fail, but you know what failure is? It's an opportunity to learn. And that's what I think
That's right.
we give up too easily. I think too many people have gotten this mindset of their, this learned helplessness where, well, I just can't do it, and thanks for noticing me. And we've got an Eeyore situation, where we just can't pick ourselves back up and say, next, what do we do next?
Well, maybe being an author or a wannabe author and reading the same book and the same passages over hundreds of times, maybe that's part of our personalities that will lend us to be more successful than those who would, after reading the same paragraph 2 times, would blow their head off. That's a different kind of character that can do that. So that may set us apart from others.
Yes, but I agree, and I think that not everybody will be successful, which is unfortunate because everyone has the potential to be successful. It's a
That's
matter of
something,
who's willing to.
absolutely.
Yes, but it's just a matter of who's willing to put in the work, and unfortunately, that's not everybody. And I see it more and more. Like my daughter is 14, and fortunately, we have the opportunity. She can be homeschooled, and we get to control that education and provide for her an education that is much broader than what would happen. Not anything wrong with public school. I myself am a product of public school, and I have been successful in my life. But I'm seeing kids her age, especially in public school, who, and once again, I'm just going to just rabbit trail here, so stay with me if you would like. But kids in public school, they're put up with these grades. They're saying, hey, these are the standards that we expect you to reach, and then they're given grades. Well, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with grades and standardized testing because we're not all allowed to reach the potential that is within us because we're all held to these certain standards. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I think that if we could get past that and say, hey, let's educate kids based on what they're capable of and what they're good at and what they excel at, and let's foster that, then I think we would see a lot more success stories in the end. But instead, we're saying everybody goes in this one box, and if you make it, you make it. If you don't, well, you're a failure and good luck in life.
Yes, I think reading is a very important part of success. I think gathering knowledge, and I think the grades in school are really the mark of the minimum expectation of who you are as a future person. We have all kinds of examples of people who bailed out of university and who became very successful in their individual fields of endeavor without graduating from college. I'm an example of that myself, not nearly as successful as others, perhaps, but I don't regret spending time in college. It only gives you the stamina. It builds your stamina so you can function in the world. That's the point of college anyway, if people were to really look at it in a true light. Going to college is really just a test to see if you can do it. It's not what you learn. It's that you learn that you can accomplish this task of sitting through these classes and listening to these people tell you what the world is all about. And if you can do that, that gives you an indication that you might be able to listen to what your boss has to tell you at a later time in history. The information you gather is rather useless for the most part, unless it's technical.
Absolutely, because the number of things that, you know, math is not my strong suit, never has been my strong suit. And guess what? I've not used a whole lot of that Algebra 2 in my entire existence. You know? But I was required to take it because they wanted to know that I could do it. And, you know, curse you, whatever math guy that invented the numbers and letters together. Like, that's a problem for me. And sure, other people can use it, but that was a point in my life where it was like, oh, you are clearly a failure and, you know, you're not good enough. And that's what I took from having to learn math that I never used, was that, well, you're not good at something and therefore you're automatically a failure. And so it took until I was, I don't know, an adult teaching my own child algebra, where I was like, oh, you know, I might could have done this a little better had somebody taken the time to teach me the way I know how to learn. So, but that is neither here nor there. But you're right. Like, college information that you learn in college, it's not really going to serve you a whole lot unless it is very specific to the career path that you've chosen. And I think that that's what we need to do in high school and middle school, is start taking these children on these journeys of, I see you're good at art. Let's foster that art in you and not make you take Algebra 2 because it's not going to serve you well.
Absolutely. And people forget that we will always need people to build homes and plumb them and run electrical wiring and fix your car or your computer. And all of us, no matter what we do, are almost, I would say, dangerously, I'll say this, equally important to the success of society.
100%. Absolutely. I agree completely. Okay, so I have taken us all over the globe, if you will, and we have touched on so many things. Now I'm going to open up the floor and let you guide the conversation. Where do you want to go?
Well, I just want to give hope to everybody out there trying to write a book that it's possible. And the hard part, of course, is selling it and making it pay for itself. But that's a dream that we have, and we should work towards. Failure is not an option in my case. I am determined. I've sent out 19,700 letters on emails on LinkedIn. I have a lot of pals on LinkedIn, or enemies on LinkedIn, perhaps. I take every avenue possible to promote myself. Thus, I'm sitting here with you. And I think we all have to do this if we want to create the life that we want for ourselves as an author or as an individual in any realm of life. But at the moment, this is the realm I'm working in and trying to. I was successful in my life, in my working life. I've been married to my wife for 40 years. I came home from tennis and noticed that the door still fit the key still fit the lock on my door, and I mentioned it to my wife, funnily, because that hasn't always been the case. I've come home and the door didn't open to me. So all things are possible. Remember that. But yeah, you can't give up. You have to keep plugging along, and you have to have a dream. If you don't have a dream, what's the point of being here? I had several dreams. I've accomplished those dreams. I have a new dream. I'm going to work at it. I'm 71. I'm middle-aged. So we'll see what the next 70 years bring me. And I'm not going to give up.
I love that. And I think that is a fantastic, piece of advice and encouragement all rolled into one that, and I think if everybody was really, really honest, they would say every single person has a dream of some sort, whether it is to break a cycle, whether it is to be successful, whether it is to, just do the next thing, whatever, get out of bed the next morning, whatever the case may be. We all have dreams. We just need to be open and honest about those dreams, because you can't be successful if you don't know what you're working toward.
Absolutely. You need to have a goal, and a short-term goal and long-term goals. You have to have both. You have to have those short-term goals to keep you in the mindset, to keep you happy enough to deal with the long-term goals that are far off, that you may not accomplish, but that you have to struggle toward. And without those, I think you flounder. And I think a lot of people are unhappy because they don't have a dream. Is our society a happier society than where it was, where you wanted to be back in the past? I don't think so. And I live in the 1800s, and of course we're much healthier now in the 21st century. But part of me wants to be back in 18th century England. I can't go back there, so I create those stories in my head and in my books. So we have to work on our dreams, and if you don't have a dream, dream one up. Create a dream that'll make your life worth living.
Absolutely. Ask yourself, what do I want out of this day? If nothing else, just make a goal for the single day when you get out of bed and say, what do I want to accomplish today? And then work towards that goal. And there's something to be said. There is literally a psychological factor towards when you achieve even the smallest of goals that you set, it is a motivating factor to get you to the next goal that might be a step up and then a step up and then a step up.
And I think absolutely. And as writers, you and I both understand that we have short-term goals every day and we have long-term goals. And if I go in and write a chapter or reread a chapter and I still have a little trouble with commas. So I have to rework that and see where my commas are supposed to be. And I'm usually wrong on that anyway. But that's why we have editors. But we have to have this. If I don't spend a couple hours every day writing on a novel or reading, I feel frustrated that I haven't accomplished something. And I think that's a good thing. I think that makes life worth living.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. This has been such a fantastic conversation, and we could keep going for a whole nother hour. If you can believe it, an hour has already passed, and we could keep talking. Like I know that you were just a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and I hope that everyone listening has pulled something. If they didn't, it's their own fault. But they have pulled something from our conversation and said, "Hey, I can apply that today, and I can apply that to the future." So thank you for hanging out and having this conversation. Before we hang up here, tell us how we can connect with you and your work.
My website is cowboyproductions52.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram at RC Hand. I have photos and videos of my onstage storytelling and my travels. And also, you can read the first chapter of each of my novels on my website. So that's free of charge. And you can see what I babble about in my spare time.
And I guess if somebody wants to promote their work, then you're willing to take an application of some sort to have a conversation on your website.
Absolutely. Just drop me a line at cowboyproductions52@gmail.com. And I'd love to have put some more content out there and help people along the way. What else are we here for?
Absolutely. And that is one of the key factors here, is that you don't have to achieve your dreams alone. You are welcome to create a community. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to create a community of resources, at least people that you can call when you need somebody who specializes in this or that or what have you. Just to form that community to lift you up and to be behind you when you are chasing after those dreams. That will make it even that much easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks, RC, and I hope that we can have another conversation in the future, because I think we could take it even a step farther in a lot of these topics that we covered today.
Absolutely. I'm available anytime. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your program, and I hope that people out there can learn something from what we've talked about and put it into practice.
Me too.